In this week's video, I'm going to be first covering up the exposed underside of the deck with skirting, then also putting on a coat of stain on the entire thing. If you've missed the series leading up to this point of the build, I'd love to link for you to catch up from the start. There are a few options you can go with for skirting around the underside of a deck, but I'm going to go with 1x8 Western Red Cedar boards. It is amazing how quickly this process goes. So this first board to start off skirting is just all personal preference. I'm actually going to go to the end of this board and leave my post exposed. I'm using 15 gauge nailer in order to pin it. Now, something special for the hardware is you want to make sure to grab stainless steel hardware and not galvanized. Galvanized will leave those black rusty marks as soon as it gets wet, and you'll have drip stains on whatever it's a fencing or your deck or your skirting. So make sure to get stainless hardware. Now you can see the way that we're measuring it is we're not doing spacers. Instead, we're going to be pulling down a measurement from the top side, and that's because each one of these boards is going to have a slight variation in them. Oh, but I'm at 8. You want 7 3/4? There. Good job. The treated wood from the stud stands out even though the gap between boards is pretty small. So to camouflage it better, I spray paint it black before attaching any boards. So on these first few boards, we were able to do full length, but now on these, we just let the board run until it hit a stud. We're gonna cut it off and then splice it together. In order to create staggered seams at this point, we're gonna start the next row with the short piece and then continue on with the long piece. Now Jacob and I planned these boards out so they would line up with the stairs and look continuous. However, note, you can go with more narrow or wider boards. It all comes down to the look you're going for. What we're doing is cutting around the spigot. And just like that, one section is complete. After lunch, we moved to repeat on the back side of the stairs. Now, with this side being so much longer, every board needed to be cut in order to stagger the seams. Again, you'll see we painted the front edge of each stud. And we started at the top and worked all the way from left to right before starting the next row and repeating. And this just made sure everything stayed in line and looked nice at the end. For all of the skirting, as well as the decking and the railing, I'm going with Western Red Cedar. I use this material so often in my builds, mostly in furniture builds, because it is incredibly lightweight. Not only is it beautiful, but it also has the naturally rot resistant qualities, not only for rot, but also for insects and fungus. So all around, really great wood choice for anything outdoors. When getting down to the bottom, there are some places that needed some extra blocking in order to nail the board onto something. So I would quickly paint something, nail it in place, and then be off. How you handle the very bottom row is personal preference, but you can see we just tapered it to die off, aiming to keep roughly 2 inches of space between the last board and the ground. This shorter section was great for using up any shorter cutoffs. The only thing to really pay attention to here is thinking about how you'll want the sides to interact with the front. Whenever running these, really just need enough overhang in order to come in and cover up the end grain of what the skirting will be here. So the rest of these are just left a little bit wild so that we can pop a chalk line and then cut it down nice and straight. We continue the process all the way around, and the only thing unique about the section is the way we tapered each bottom board to go with the slope of the ground, which I think looks really nice. Okay, now let's prep everything in order to apply a coat of stain and see this Western Red Cedar pop to life. So I've been going through this transition of transitioning my house from this orange color over to a stained cedar color. I've already done a video on how to refinish a porch, which is this existing portion you see. But now that I've built the deck and I'm about to stain it cedar, I need to go through and sand these posts, the headers, anything else that's going to be exposed and seen. That way, whenever I'm staining it, I can do it all at the same time. So Jake and I are gonna be on 4-inch belt sanders, and then as we're doing that, Cindy's gonna be going through and sweeping off all of these deck boards and getting all of the slight dirt and grime that we've accumulated over the past few days. Be thankful you guys are on that end, because this was a solid 5 hours of sanding for us. For anything around fine dust, check out this Trend respirator that is not only lightweight, but filters down to a 0.3 micron. It has 8 hours of use and minimal breathing resistance. Alrighty, now let's give this deck a good cleaning before moving on to staining. For applying stain on such a large area, I will be using a sprayer. But first, I went through and used a lamb's pad on any area that would be easier to wipe on, such as the railing surfaces. A tip is to keep a chip brush around on this step as well to get into the nooks a pad can't. If you're interested in getting into an airless, and I definitely recommend checking out the Wagner 170. It features high efficiency airless technology that decreases overspray by up to 55% compared to traditional airless sprayers, while delivering softer spray, improved control, and providing a more consistent finish. Note that the Wagner comes with a 515 tip for latex paint, but since I'm using stain, I switched over to a 513. Before I started, I thought about my path so I wouldn't be stepping on freshly stained area. Using the deck boards as my guide when spraying, a fan was just wide enough to cover an entire board with a pass. Even with this large of an area, guys, it goes so quickly. It's unreal, and I tell you, it is so incredibly rewarding. Don't worry about that slightly heavier area where there's overlap on the passes. After getting the entire top deck done, I used a lamp pad on a stick to hit any heavy area to smooth it out. I did go with an oil-based stain, so we'll have to stay off it for a few days, but man, what a difference. I am so glad I went with Western Red Cedar for this build. I think it's so striking and so beautiful. Stay tuned for the next project in the series where I show you how to build a boardwalk.